What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Above Average podcast, where we talk to people who are above average in mindset and action. I'm Will. This is Ethan. And today we're joined by Gabe Trbovich, owner of CrossFit Athletics.
How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So I wanted to save this from when we were on camera, but so I'm a member in CrossFit Athletics, full transparency, and it's been about
Great member.
Thank you.
10 out of 10.
It's been about 6 months now, I think, for me.
Yeah.
And I got to say, it's one of the best things I've done in a few years.
That makes me very happy.
And the reason I say that is, as you know, I'm a trainer as well. And for a long time, I was taking responsibility for my own fitness and just lifting, Like I've always kind of taken a page out of CrossFit's book since college, where I want to do everything. But I was just lifting heavy all the time. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I do this for 30 people every month. I don't want to have to worry about it myself. And maybe I should try and actually do CrossFit where I'm not like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And, I've always been aware of CrossFit Athletics since living in the Southside and stuff. And I knew a little bit. And then since joining, like I've had the most fun in the past 6 months, because just everything about the way the gym is run. I want to get more into that, but the programming and then just being able to, the programming, the coaching, everything about it has just been fantastic.
You're making me blush.
That was my goal. That was my goal. But yeah, man, I mean, it's a real testament to what you've got going on down there. It's awesome.
I really appreciate it. We've been going at it a long time. We're always trying to sharpen the knife on it. In such a wide range of people that you're having coming in, that you want to make sure that you can deliver a quality product to people of all different fitness levels. So to do that, I think that you just need coaches that are really diligent, pay attention. I mean, we've got like back end SOPs to make sure that people are getting touches and everything, and we're always hammering that on the back end. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. It makes me real happy when I hear that.
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to ask you about is programming. And now a couple years ago, I coached at Virginia Tech with men's soccer, and our director of operations, shout out to James, was he had his like is it CFL2? Like is that what you call it? And so he used to program workouts for the entire staff. And so that was what we did every day, basically. And I mean, it was in a similar format to where we would do, like a more intense Metcon, and then we'd go into just like kind of like slower, just strength training on like after 3 days of, going hard essentially. And I'd never done programming like that before. And it always took me right up to the brink where I was like, you think about quitting, but you never do. Yeah. And it's just, the maximal effort. And with CrossFit Athletics, I've noticed it's the same thing. And I was curious about, when it comes to programming, especially for an entire gym, it's got to be complex.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, is it something that, obviously the more time you spend in it, like you improve, but would you say it's more a matter of like you being involved in CrossFit and doing CrossFit, or is it come more so from like a learning method of like, I guess, CrossFit methodology? Yeah.
I mean, I think that I'd say we don't take a traditional, like an HQ, we're going to get our affiliate canceled for saying this. We don't take like an HQ approach to training. We take, which makes sense when you were doing CrossFit before, we take like a strength conditioning approach to it. We come out of like the tree. Jen and I both had a coach who was originally at OPT and then started training Think Tank. Shout out your coach, Max. Shout out to Max. And that sort of like tree of programming broke off into this very reverse engineered from end goals style of program, where you're saying like, what are we trying to achieve, and then how do we reverse engineer that? And then when we get into like an actual Metcon, it's sort of chaotic. So you can't, like, if you're just programming Metcons all the time, you don't know what that's going to be. And especially for a large group of people, it's going to be 20 different things. It's power snatches and toes to bar. For one person, it's going to be a toes to bar limiter. For another person, it's going to be low back endurance or hinging endurance. And then for somebody else who has both those things, it's going to be grip strength. So what are you actually trying to elicit with that? And that's fine if you program that. You're just understanding that you're going to get randomness, and those workouts are the most fun. But to program to get people better, you need to sort of slow it down, break it apart, have focused pieces on it. And that's sort of like a general 10,000 foot view of what we're doing. I'll drill into any point of that you want. I don't remember what your specific question was that I answered.
Yeah. Head in that direction. I mean, I guess I was thinking about, like, with my background with soccer, like as a goalkeeper coach, like I don't have any licenses in terms of like US soccer, you know, like USA license, B license, stuff like that. And so I always wonder, because I've been in the game, a lot of what I coach is based on experience. And so I didn't know if there's like that, I don't know if that's a division or what you'd call it, or.
Yeah. I mean, definitely I learned a lot training at it to be competitive. And because I don't think that I was genetically set up to excel in CrossFit, I was like a very explosive athlete. Let me back that up a little bit. I think that CrossFit, the sport, is an endurance sport. I think that's an important thing for people to understand. You need to have a requisite level of strength. I always like to compare it to like if you want to be a competitive 5K runner, you need to be able to run X fast to get a good 5K time. So you need that level of power output, but then it's just an endurance sport. I think it's the same thing with CrossFit. You need X level of strength and strength endurance, but or repeatability through movements, but then it's just like basically breathing and localized muscular endurance. So that's sort of like again, I just keep zooming out before we drill into anything, but doing it as a competitive athlete, I was like a really powerful athlete and got strong really easily, but the conditioning portion of it was always a struggle for me. Those adaptations came really hard. So that allowed me to be very empathetic to those people or I'd say I was compassionate to those people who had that same struggle. And then I could just layer that on top of people who had other struggles. I also didn't move very well. That's another thing to be good at CrossFit in general. You need to be like an excellent mover and be very mobile. And that was a big struggle for me. So anyone that shares in those two things, it's very easy for me to understand their struggle. But then someone who doesn't get strong well, I can empathize with that and be like, oh, it's just same, but different. I couldn't like get a big engine really easily, but you're just struggling with strength. Mm-hmm. Again, I forgot the original question, but.
No, I think you kind of answered it there. I mean, that kind of leads me into another question, actually. Maybe you already answered this, but when so in college, like I learned how to Olympic lift as a part of playing soccer. And right around, I think my sophomore year was when those games documentaries started coming out on Netflix. And I would watch those and I would be so hyped up. Like I'd be on my couch sweating. Yeah. Cause I'm like, this looks amazing.
And I hadn't ever done it. And I was like, this looks like pretty sick.
Yeah. And
I feel old. The first games documentaries I was watching, I was like buying the DVD.
So this is, I think the first one I saw was the one where it was, I think it was Matt Fraser's first year. And then like Ben Smith like stole it from him right at the end, whatever year that was. And
it's like 16-ish.
Yeah, I was gonna say 15, 16 probably. Cause I feel like I watched the same one.
Yeah.
Like around the same time. I was like, oh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
it was so cool. But in my mind, I always thought about like, I'm just not strong enough. Like I can run, but I'm not strong enough. And then, you know, talking to you, like the day we met, like we kind of talked about that a little bit. And so, you know, hearing you say that, like if you have the strength, but you don't have the conditioning, or you have the conditioning or don't have the strength, like which one sets you up more, or does it not matter? Like you're in the same boat either way.
You definitely need to be strong enough to do everything. You know, it's this really like layered response, I think, that I want to give in that, you know, like you have to be able to do chest to bar pull-ups. You have to be able to do ring muscle-ups. You have to be able to do handstand push-ups. You need to be able to squat clean and snatch X weight. You got to be able to deadlift. So that you definitely need to be strong enough to do it. But ultimately, going hard for 20 minutes is running a 5K. You know, like that's the conditioning level that you need too. So you need all of these things for sure. But I think that just from like the best way to conceptualize it, I think, is an endurance sport. And mainly I say that because of the way that you should be training for it should be much more endurance sport based, in that you can go hard all the time. Like imagine, again, I'll keep using this example of running a 5K. If I was just programming sprints and 5K for time as hard as you can every day, people would break eventually. And that's not the way that endurance athletes train.
Yeah.
So there's a balance for the regular class with that, because I think that the real magic in CrossFit is that it's fun. That is what the real drug of CrossFit is that it's a bunch of people doing the same thing that you're doing. It's a good training program that checks all the GPP, general physical preparedness boxes, and it's just really fun to participate in. So you can't lose that in the classes. You can't just give EMOMs and row repeats and, unilateral strength training. We layer all that in as best we can, but no one's going to show up if 7 days a week it's dumbbell split squats and 500-meter row repeats and, handstand holds and base level gymnastic training. That's what the sport athletes need, the people that want to be competitive in the sport. But you just try and mix all that stuff in to the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like I've seen the thing that you've talked about a couple times is the fact that there is like a good level of competition there, which like I kind of miss, because like I'm not in the military anymore. I was in it for 10 years, and I go to the gym on my own, and I do a variety of things, but I got into the tactical games because of the competition aspect. I was like, I need some competition. Like I like competition. I was a D2 athlete. I was in the Army. I just like it. And so having it be fun and diverse, but then he was explaining, there's like people on the board and on the wall, and it gives you something to work on, even if you're just there for fun. So you can kind of have fun, or you can kind of be like, okay, there's goals that you can do. And I think some people kind of tip over from that into like, this is fun, and now I like want to get like even like a little more into it,
Yeah, I use the term leverage point a lot. I think the gamification of it is the leverage point, where people want to get good, they want to do better, and then if you can sort of connect with them and say, well, this is actually how you get better. You have to do at least some boring stuff, and then also help them to understand how that fits into their life. Some stuff, you want to have a 300-pound clean and jerk and a 250 snatch, like you're probably going to need some specialized training. You're going to have some lifestyle stuff if you're doing CrossFit on top of that. So just managing expectations as well within the regular class is part of it. But yeah, I think that the gamification is the fun thing. That is the thing that keeps everybody coming back to it.
Yeah. So you came in more endurance based, you think, because like you were doing good lifts, and like, I mean, we've been friends for years now, but like you were lifting a lot for a while. It might not be at the capacity that you were at in the last 2 years from the time I met you, but I wouldn't have thought that you were unqualified in the lifting aspect necessarily, even though you've done soccer and that requires a lot of more running. And
right. I think like it's I don't know. It's a relative thing, and I think you can fall into the trap of like comparing, especially when you're watching games documentaries.
I was just about to say,
that's true.
Documentaries. And like, oh man, I need to clean and jerk 350.
100%.
It's like
100%. And I think because there is a time where you've got to be like, I'm not training for the games. Like, and I've never really classified myself as doing that, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I would love to just head in that direction.
Yeah.
See how good I can get. That's all I really care about.
Yeah.
And with my background as a Division I athlete, I'm like, I feel like I'm at a better starting point than other people are to potentially do that. But I'm also now 28. Like I haven't been training full-time CrossFit for years. And, but I do think, I don't know, I think the engine that I have is maybe a little bit ahead of other people that are maybe like have that requisite strength already. Mm-hmm. And so that was the reason I brought that up, because, and I don't know if I necessarily thought that, but then in the first couple months of just being at CFA, like I was like, oh shit, I can like redline it pretty quickly. And I didn't know that about myself.
We try and do a bunch of stuff too that's like regular fitness and remove the skill aspect of it. So you bring somebody in that's really fit. Maybe they have a 500-pound deadlift and can run a 6-minute mile. They're like legit fit.
Yeah.
And then you ask them to do toes to the bar, I'll smash them. That's just because they don't have that exposure. But if you ask them to do 10 rounds of, I don't know what, like a row and kettlebell swings, that's very accessible to them. And people need to conceptualize that as like the sport versus fitness, and you're like trying to get good at very specific things within the sport, but that might have to do that, you might have to have your fitness decline because you're focused more on learning how to do toes to bar efficiently, learning how to do chest to bar efficiently, getting muscle ups, like learning how to snatch. You can only do so much. And again, then it comes down to like what you want to, are you willing to take that hit for some period of time? Do you want to work on that? And that's not what we do in the regular class. In the regular class, we're just leveraging the fun of CrossFit so that people can get fit. You know, we're just trying to make sure we get them the exposure to like single arm walking lunges under fatigue. Like you should probably be able to do that with a nice overhead position if you want to be like healthy in your regular life.
True. Yeah, true. How do you, this is a question that I just thought of. How do you teach people a muscle up?
How do you teach people a muscle up?
Because like, okay, so like I learned it when I was really, really young.
Ring muscle up or a bar muscle up?
Ring muscle up because I've had some people ask me and I'm like, I don't know. I learned it when I was 8. And I learned a strict one, but I've thought about that. I'm like, that is a really hard thing to try to teach somebody if they're coming in. I mean, that's an interesting move for someone coming in. And then it's also kind of dangerous, you know?
Yes. I think that's an excellent point. The first thing we do with anybody when they're snatching underneath fatigue, it's a little bit less with snatching, but like handstand push-ups and ring muscle ups is to explain to them, you can be very fit without doing these things.
Right.
Because the level of, or the odds of injury greatly increase when doing muscle ups. The biggest thing being that when people fall, like through the rings, if they miss.
Go this way, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Your body has a natural inclination to hold on because you're falling. So that's like the first thing you do is like, listen, if you miss, it is better to fall and possibly hit your face and like break an orbital bone than it is to hold on and dislocate both shoulders.
Yeah.
Like so, and when you start having that conversation, a lot of people just self-select their
like I'm out.
Yeah, they're just like,
That's fair. That's fair. I think most people will say, oh, that's cool. And they look at it and then you kind of tell them, okay, it takes this amount of work. It takes this amount of risk.
so then once people can do a certain, like, a certain number of pull-ups, they can do a certain number of ring dips, they feel comfortable. We start doing stuff like I'm actually teaching them a couple ring muscle up clinics this week. And for people that are just getting them, the requisite is like 3 to 5 very clean, strict pull-ups, 3 strict ring dips. And then the first thing that I'll do with them is what we call a dip balance. So, like a snatch balance where you like punch underneath a snatch in overhead squat position. It's sort of the same thing. Like you get up on the rings and then you drop to that catch position. And we sort of gauge how stable they are on the rings. So if they can't like drop and catch and they're sort of like, whoa, all over the place, then they're not ready. And I think that as a coach, the best thing that you can do, and what we try and set the precedent the first time that somebody walks in our doors, we're always just going to be hyper honest with you. There is no value in sort of feeling bad that somebody wants to do a muscle up, but they're not ready to do it.
Right.
And not just being like, dude, now's not the time for you. And if they're upset about that, then they can leave. Not in like a mean way. I don't want anybody to leave, but they're going to end up getting hurt and leaving anyway. So.
Exactly. I was like, because then if they don't, then you risk, you're like not only just liable, but then it's like they now might have an injury that is, something that they got to like live with. And, it's better to set that tone and just be, hey, here's what it takes. Here's what it's like to be realistic. That makes sense. But I was just kind of curious because I'd only been around it from the perspective of teaching a kid like in gymnastics. So I'm like, oh man, teaching an adult, that's like kind of next level like move, and I've never like tried to learn something that hard this late in life, like that complex of a move.
If you have that background though, it like certain people, they come from sports backgrounds or they come from backgrounds where they've learned things with their body. So a lot of times I'll talk about like different geniuses that people have, or they're different types of geniuses. And people that move well or athletic, like that is their genius. They can just see something and then replicate it. We've had people come in that are really good athletes that have never snatched before and they snatch. And I'm like, dude, it took me like a year to do that.
Yeah.
And I was still pretty, like I was watching people like when I'm old enough to like butterfly pull-ups when I started CrossFit were not a thing. They were like invented while I was doing CrossFit. Like everybody did kipping. And I just like watched a video of someone doing butterfly pull-ups and I wasn't great at them, but like I could just do it. I didn't have to like learn or anything like that. And you get people that are like that.
Okay.
But then there are people that have never done any sports whatsoever and they started CrossFit. They've never done any sort of fitness whatsoever. And now they're like 5 years into their journey and they want to learn a muscle up. That's really hard. A lot of spotting, a lot of like making sure like, hey, don't come in and do this on your own.
True. Also true. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and that's something that we have a conversation with people about in general. Like we try and push people in the beginning away from open gym because what ends up happening is they get embarrassed in a workout, or I mean, they have no reason to be embarrassed. Like you're going to get humbled. Like that is just, that's like one of my favorite things about CrossFit is this is just repeatedly humbling. And so they're going to get humbled in a workout. They're going to feel embarrassed. And then they're going to, let's say it's a deadlift workout or something. Then they're going to come to, that was on Friday. They're going to come to open gym on Sunday and do infinity deadlifts. And then they're going to email us on Monday and be like, hey, my back's broken. Like I got to put my membership on pause. So in the beginning, we try and really shy people away from open gym unless we've given them something to work on, or we're just like, hey, listen, you're coming in, you're doing something very simple. You're like rowing, or you're doing a workout that we did earlier in the week that you feel very comfortable with. So there's sort of like a big, like a zoomed out position on that, which is like, hey, what framework do you start giving for all athletes to approach stuff? And as you get into that higher skill stuff, I'm like, just pay for the personal training to do it. Like that's the optimal way. Wait till we do a clinic on it or something like that. Don't try and figure it out on your own unless you're in that like 2% of people that are like, nah, I could probably just like do it. And even then you're taking your life into your own hands doing
that's fair. Yeah.
a ring muscle up.
I'm coming to one of those. I think is it Tuesday? This
Tuesday is if you've never done one, and
that's me.
Wednesday is yeah.
I've never had access to rings before, so I've never tried it. But I don't know.
One really interesting thing, and we try and communicate this a lot, is how do you communicate how a movement feels via words? I can't remember. I'm always so upset I can never remember where I read this or heard it, but someone was saying that verbal communication or written communication is the best form of communication that we have, but it's also not very good. In that, like think about when you're reading a story, there are certain stories that make you feel the story. And then there are certain stories that they tell you a story. And feeling the story is obviously very hard to do. Otherwise everyone would do it and everyone would write great stories. But that's very difficult. And I think that same thing, I was an English major. So there's like a perfect layover there into training. Like how do you explain to somebody what pulling underneath a snatch feels like? Like you're like if you watch a slow motion video of somebody snatching, you're like not contacted with the ground and pulling against the barbell to gain speed underneath it. I mean, those words like mean something to someone when you say them, but they can't feel that. That's a very hard thing to just feel from words. And how do you teach that? So I kind of teach everybody like a kid and just try and find the dumbest. I'm a firm believer in like left curving everything, like just taking it to the dumbest principle that you can. So just dumbing it down to the simplest thing that makes them try and get the aha moment with them around what things feel. And whether that's words, I mean, a lot of times it's just drills. You try and break things down to a simple component. For snatching, it would be like a high hang squat snatch where you have like no redip. You just start at the high hang, drive up, and then you have to pull underneath the bar. And that usually, then people are like, oh, okay, I get this. I don't feel this when I normally snatch. And then you can help them get it. But I think that's an important thing to understand around coaching and coaching kids is how hard it is coaching adults. Kids, it's a little bit easier, I think, because you're already talking to them in a very dumbed down manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then adults, I think that the best thing is to just talk to them in the most dumbed down manner that you can and try and express what things feel like, not what they should do. In my English classes, they would say, show, don't tell.
Makes sense. We have a term in the Army called breaking it down Barney style. And it's kind of like a degrading way of saying it, but like, we're going to break it down Barney style, which just means like literally step by step, easy. Like you don't need to have graduated high school to understand what I'm about to teach you, like just make it very simple, simple and easy to understand. But you've coached kids. I mean, you coached me like in the gym here, like a little bit. And actually what you had just said was what he had like shown me when I was like trying to learn, just like, I'm like, I don't know how to do any.
Oh, the day we did the cleans.
Yeah. Like I hadn't done Olympic lifts that someone has shown me. I've kind of played around with them just myself, but like I have the wherewithal to know, if I do this too many times, I'm going to be having a bad habit. So like, I'll see it and I'm like, oh, I'll try a little bit with like minimal weight, but I've never been confident in just doing it. So
they're so complex, which is why I enjoy them so much. And it was now like pit soccer I mean, I haven't been in the weight room in a while, but like when I was on their staff, they weren't doing Olympic lifts anymore, and rightfully so. Maybe I don't know why a snatch would correlate to soccer really, but
have a soccer player snatch.
no, but we did it. And I mean, I'm glad because I learned how to do it. And that's something I think about with CrossFit is like if I was starting CrossFit now and I didn't have any experience with Olympic lifting, like how frustrating that would be. Because that's a long timeline to then get to the point where you're then proficient, especially at this time, like starting at 28 or whatever. And I don't know, that was a long road. I mean, I used to, after learning in college, I had a barbell and plates at my parents' house, and we had a flat like patio. And I used to go out there and I would just rip cleans and snatches and watch myself do them. And, you know, there was a time where it's like feeling the body contact. Like there's so many different little aspects to it that, to your point, it is, like you can say it, sure. And then, but there's that very formulaic way of saying it to where someone's going to actually be like, okay, I feel what you're saying.
Sometimes it's better when you get a blank canvas because you can start at first principles and just say to someone like, okay, hey, listen, here's the first thing that we're going to understand. There's an optimal bar path and you're going to move your body around it. And that's like, people are just like, oh, aha moment, you know, like, oh, well, how come I didn't think of that? And then you can start from that point instead of, I mean, that's, you know, I was learning power cleans on my own. Like I'm just ripping the barbell around. Most people think when they first start, like that you're almost like kettlebell swinging it off your hip, you know, but really you want that bar path to be as vertical as possible. I think that sometimes starting with people, that can be a good thing because, and then dealing with adults, then they're like, no. Like I'm like, my guy, like, let's relax. I'm trying to help you here. Yeah. That's probably the hardest thing about working with adults is to getting them to understand that you're on their side. I think that a lot of times people will have, I don't think a direct idea that you're trying to hold them back, but they have like a conflicting idea of what should be done. And then that makes like an adversarial relationship in that they think that they should be doing it one way and your way is going to hold them back. And so then because of that, I think that they think that your way is going to like basically handicap their progress. And I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe they could be right, but
I think sometimes people just aren't ready to hear it from you, you know? And like I had a new client join and he's telling me, he's like, I want to start with core. I'm like, okay, why? He's like, well, I've never seen my abs. I'm like, okay, well, you can do crunches all you want, but like, that's not really the most efficient way to get you there, you know? And then like, he's still telling me, like I gave him what his program looked like. He's like, there's not a lot of abs on here. And I'm like, listen, this is why. And I mean, that's it. Like they have their own idea of what it should look like. And then they're coming to the professional and they're like, I want to do this, but it has to be the way I want it to. I'm like, well, what are we doing here in the first place? You know, like,
what, do you just want me to write the program that you want to write?
Yeah. Like if you know what you were doing, why didn't you do it?
Yeah. I think that building trust that's something that as a coach took me a little time to learn as I first started working with athletes, like as individuals, especially those that want to be competitive and sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes like somebody that wants to be competitive in the sport and wants to get a muscle up, for example, they might be like, I don't know, a year away. They don't think that because they're good at all the other CrossFit stuff. They just don't have a muscle up yet. And they're like, oh, no. Like I do class, I'm like top time. I'm like muscle up's right around the corner. And I'm like, I don't think so. How do you build trust with that person right away? It's a little easier if they I had a client who, he's now out in California, but he worked with me. Like he swam at Pitt actually. Oh. We're doing shout outs. I guess this is shout out Mac. And he was like super raw, but really talented. And we first start working and, you know, like he's got a monster engine. For a regular class, he's like relatively strong. So he's like smashing everybody. And I'm like, all right, let's start out with some basic testers. You know, I have like a set of testers that I do. They're like very like simple, 150 wall balls for time, 30 ring muscle ups, 30 bar muscle ups, you know, like some 1 rep maxes, some rows, some runs. But that way we can just like, there's nothing confusing the data. We're just like, you're good at wall balls, you're bad at muscle ups, or, you know, it's just, we don't need to put those together yet. And we did the bar muscle ups and he does it. It's like 10-minute cap. He fails. And I'm like, all right, these are all the reasons that it's wrong. Your pacing is off. Your form is like kind of really bad. We need to work on some technical stuff. And he's like, nah, like, I don't know. And I'm like, just give me like 6 weeks just doing what I tell you. I know that's not exciting. Just do what I tell you. And then he like came back 6 weeks later and did it in like 4 minutes or something like that. And he was like, then he was in. And then anything I told him from there. So that was something that I learned instead of when somebody, it's very interesting coaching because when you're not getting the result, we have this back end conversation with the coaches all the time. They're like, what if someone's like not taking this cue? They're not getting it. I was like, listen, they might be being obtuse, but you're wrong because you're not able to connect with them. Like you're always wrong if you can't get them to do what you want. And that was something that took me a little bit to understand as a coach, where if somebody's not buying in, it's because I didn't give them what they needed to buy in. I mean, sure, there are people out there that are never going to buy in. You know, that person that thinks they have ring muscle ups or they're going to get ring muscle ups in 6 weeks, but really they're like a year and a half away of development. You're probably like never going to connect with that person, but you're still going to try. You know, you're going to lay out the timeline. You're going to say, hey, listen, this is what we need to be working on. You need to be getting strict supinated grip chest to bar pull-ups. Like we can't do that yet. Like we can't really expect you to be able to do a muscle up. Once we get that, then we're going to progress to this. And, you know, so you try and start laying it out and hopefully it clicks for them right away. Like, oh yeah, if I can't do a strict chest to bar pull-up with a supinated grip, like how am I going to do a ring muscle up? That doesn't work with everybody. But I think that meeting people where they're at and helping to develop trust. And if it doesn't work, like you said it is going to, then you're wrong. Like you should, that's a good thing to figure out because you're not going to be right about everything.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important thing as a coach too, is to just be open to different ideas. And like I was saying earlier, I was like, I don't know, maybe somebody who has a different plan, like that plan's better. It's probably not because they don't have the same experience level as me or other people, you know? But I'm willing to be open to it. And if it's logical, I'll at least give it a shot. There's people that want to do certain things with their program that I'm like, well, I've never done that before. Like, that's not necessarily the way I would approach it, but like, I'm willing to give it a go and we'll see what happens. This is what I think it's going to be like. But if you really are committed to doing it, and some people, it's just self-exploration they want with their training. I had one guy that wanted to train 7 days a week. He's like, I know it's wrong, but I like see people on the internet doing it. And I was like, this is what I think is going to happen. And what I thought, and it happened, you know, like you're going to get overuse injuries.
Yeah.
Like that. And no matter how much we sort of like dumb down the training, if you want any level of intensity to it, like it's just, you're going to get hurt or you need drugs.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Man, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I love moving, man, but like, obviously you can't go with the same intensity for 7 days straight. I mean, you could move every day. Like,
yeah.
If you vary the intensity, you'll be all right. But I couldn't imagine like actually, I mean, I don't know how long I would even make it.
Yeah. I think he made it like 8 weeks or something like that, 6 weeks. He's all right. I mean, I wasn't just like, here's the design. I was, you know, like, here's 7 days of CrossFit. He sort of like was more like a GPP client and he like wasn't all that interested in CrossFit, like the sport.
Yeah.
He wanted like CrossFit-ish stuff. So I gave him the smartest design I could for 7 days a week. So, you know, I think that's why it lasted as long as it did. But I mean, it was just minor stuff. Like he just ended up with like elbow tendonitis.
Yeah.
And was like annoying for a couple of weeks. And then he's like, all right, this experiment can be done. I was like,
You're like, this tracks, you know, like this tracks. But I mean, yeah, I'm shocked you said 8 weeks. I was like, I would say 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting like
guessing.
tempo bodybuilding stuff and bringing down rate of perceived effort. You know, I was like, hey, listen, we're going to have to bring down intensity, volume. We're going to try and like basically start out at the same amount of volume I would give you training 5 days a week, but we're going to spread it out over 7 days and we're going to bring down intensity a little bit and try and mix in like as much stuff as we can that's like very easy to recover from. But I don't know, if you want to do pull-ups and then you also want to row, that's like the same movement.
Yeah, right.
Over and over. You want to do push-ups and you want to get on the assault bike, it's like kind of the same thing. It's not if you have good like recovery protocols, but if you don't, it's like your elbow's going to hurt.
Yeah. Catch up to you eventually.
Yeah. Like I did 75 hard in the summer and I did that leading into the tactical games. And we were talking about this a few podcasts ago, but I mean, I adjusted my training a lot and like I've done a lot of variety of training. So like I'm really good at feeling my body and knowing something, which is like half the battle. But the only thing was, it was like, okay, 2 45-minute workouts. So I cut my workout exactly at that time, no matter what. And I was like, "Ooh, I wasn't quite done with this. Doesn't matter," because I was like, "That's the only way I could do every day." And then I did a whole week of hypertrophy sometimes, just to be like, "Okay, we're just gonna go real easy and hypertrophy, and just do like slow hypertrophy. It's not intense, you know."
Did you like it? What were your takeaways from it?
I liked it a lot, actually. I've been debating doing it again. I think if I'm being honest, I think it's hard to tee that up into a games situation, because like I did have to adapt, because I'm adapting my life for a schedule, not for the games or for like the tactical games. I mean, so I thought my mindset and having that routine every day was extremely beneficial. I saw gains too. I definitely got, like, I put on more muscle. I had fat loss, but I did roughly 2 weeks of hypertrophy, 1 week of strength, roughly that. And sometimes I kind of flip flop that. So I was making things intense for a good week and doing like a PR thing, and then I kind of dumb it down the next 2 weeks of the everydays. But I had to go feel it out a lot. Like I would go to the gym and be like, okay, what's not sore?
Yeah.
And that was 1 or 2 of the days of the week. I was like, okay, I'm not sore here. I think I should do more of this. And I'm fairly good at that from just doing a lot of working out, but like not a program, you know, like there's no hard program for it. So
when you were asking earlier about like our sort of like philosophy, you had questions about that. I think that one of the best things that somebody told me is that you need to give some responsibility to the athlete to take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And which is what I think that you were doing there. But that's an important thing. We try and preach that a lot, where I'm like, listen, you want to come train 5 days a week, and on the 4th day of whatever your week split looks like, you're like beat up because the workout caught up to you, or you're not sleeping. He's like, don't come. Go for an easy run or go for a walk or something. Or come in and just do the workout. Like now my training looks like rate of perceived effort 7 to 8, like 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. But I'm 41 now, so it's just like, it's not the same. And I don't think I could. Like I would, after training for so long, like you're saying, knowing your body, I'm like, man, if I drop the hammer today, like this is going to be 5 days before I can train relatively hard again.
Which like you can do, you just kind of pick and choose, you know, like you just kind of pick and choose. And like, that's just like reality, I think, a little bit sometimes.
I think, and we were talking about programming for the group class, and which is one of the reasons we like the open and we do the open, is I do think that you need a season. And I was thinking about that with like tactical games too. Like you need this base level of aerobic development, movement work, sport specific, like technical skill work at like the beginning of your off season. And then if you have something that's complex, and then it builds towards like putting all these things together, and then you're peaking as you get towards your season. That's the way that every sport is run. And I think that when people just get into fitness, they're like essentially constantly training in a peaking cycle.
Yeah.
And there's no foundational development to their program. There's nothing that's really broken down to its core components. And that just leads to burnout. It leads to, like, one of the things I'm really proud about as a gym is the people that have been there for a really long time. They've been doing CrossFit for a really long time. And now we've gotten to a point, knock on wood, where we don't have people coming in. Like basically CrossFit, what we're always worried about is shoulder overuse and hinging, low back overuse, injuries. You know, like you're going to have, like if you're going to go play basketball or you're going to go play soccer, like people are going to get hurt. You know, like they're going to sprain an ankle. Like you're going to have somebody miss a box jump. You're going to have somebody catch a snatch funny. Like that's just the way, when you go skiing, you know, like you're going to hurt your knee going down the hill. Like that just, that's baked in. But I think that good programming can avoid, and good coaching to communicate to people how they should be approaching things and the way they should be understanding their body, that you can get people to a point where they're avoiding those overuse injuries. And we program around that too. Like we don't go to the real high level volume, you know, like we just keep like limits on what we're willing to bring into the regular class, around a lot of shoulder and low back stuff specifically, and a little bit of knee stuff, a little bit of squatting volume.
That actually brings up another question I had. So talking about like culture of CFA and stuff like that. And I feel like when I'm there, like everything feels like it just runs itself. You know, like everyone comes in, they know what they're doing. You know, everything's kind of just just is. I don't feel like there's anyone ever there. Like, I mean, obviously, like the coach is leading the group, but I think just like culture wise, it's just everyone's on the same page in a sense. And I wanted to ask about that from a perspective of creating that, because I know it's been a while now. I mean, what is it, 2010?
Yeah.
So it's been a long time of development. But I mean, is there anything? I don't know. I mean, like specifically that is done. To develop that.
I think that like we're very intentional around keeping the main thing. We were sort of talking off camera a minute about like some people are there for like they're 10 out of 10 there for fitness. And some people are there 4 out of 10 for fitness, 2 out of 10 to get out of their house because they work from home, and then another 4 out of 10 for socialization. And that's not wrong. Especially within like a group design like that. But we always want to keep training the main thing. Like the main thing, people come, we'll say, or we say a lot on the back in the coaching meeting, like no religion, no politics here. Like this is just a place for people to get fit. That's cool if they want to meet here and then go coffee and talk about those things, but that's just going to distract from what we're trying to do. And I think that just little like big picture things like that keep the focus on the training. And then all the other fun stuff that comes along with it, we try and do stuff outside of the gym. We do like bike rides. We try and do, okay, I got a couple of interesting things to drill in on here around building culture. So one of the things that we do around culture is that we still use the old school whiteboard. We don't go to like the TVs. So a lot of CrossFit gyms will have like a TV that has the workout on it, and then everyone has to enter their score into the app.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we have an app that you can enter your score and it'll track it for people that want to see, Will, you come at the 6:30 p.m. class, Ethan, you come at the 6:30 a.m. class, and Will, you want to see what Ethan did? I'm like, just put the score in the app. You know, cool. You can see it if you care enough about that. But what we've seen over the years with the open, so when we tell people to do the open, one of the things we always tell them is like, hey, if you're like very anxious about your scores, it's probably not a good thing for you to do the open, because it's very humbling experience. There's hundreds of thousands of people that are doing it. If you're 5th out of 10th in the class, you're going to be, if there's 400,000 people doing it, you're going to be 200,000th in the world. That's a hard pill for people to swallow. And you enter your score after you do it Friday night, and you're like, oh, that's not that bad. And then you just spend the weekend watching your score drop as more people enter their scores. So that's really hard for people. And every year when we do the open, somebody cries. Like that's like a guarantee. Somebody comes in the office and they're upset. And I don't want to say it's a good thing. It just means they care.
Yeah.
And that's normal. I've never cried over an open workout, but I've been very upset about my performance on open workouts before. And we don't want to recreate that on the day-to-day with training. So we don't want people going home and poring over the leaderboard, and we think that creates like a very bad culture. Like the scores are important. They're going on the board. Yeah. It's a big deal to do it RX'd, and you should get that star next to your name. And that's what a lot of people are looking for, is to be able to do the workouts RX'd and get that star next to their name, or beat their friend or their training buddy or their little frenemy at the gym, like their little gym rival. Like, I don't beat that guy, like I don't like the cut of his jib. I'm going to take him now. But that's important. That's the gamification of it. But just leave it there. And that's why we just use the old school whiteboard. And if you want to participate, I think in entering it on the app where everyone can see it, but I think that forcing that, I don't think a lot of people are thinking that through. I don't think they're intentionally trying to do that. But I think that that's one of the things that happen when you do that. And then the other thing is we do like in-house comps to make sure that people don't we sort of, the CrossFit scene with local competitions used to be really cool. I mean, it still is really cool, but in like 2012 to 2016, like, Will, you could show up at a local comp and workouts break your way and you're in the championship. Like the gap between like average Joe CrossFitter and dude who's really good is not that big. And then around that time, it started becoming like the gap between like good CrossFitter in the regular class and good competitive CrossFitter is just miles apart. So local comps began to like they just weren't as popular anymore. That's one of the reasons I think that started to happen. So when we hold the in-house comps, we just hold them with members so that people can get a taste of competition. It's like a little more intense than the regular class. They can have some fun with it. They're usually like themed, like a 4th of July one. I make like custom trophies for it. It's cool. It's fun. But we're not bringing in outside people who are like all of a sudden just like smashing everybody.
Yeah.
If you get smashed by the people at the gym, like there's some very fit people at the gym. I've been humbled in the in-house comps for sure. And so, but those are just a few things that I think that we try and do to get keep the main thing and to also keep it fun at the same time.
Yeah. Back to the whiteboard, like the culture stuff. I love the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look at that whiteboard every time I'm in there.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's like I like having something to chase, like seeing the people who have done the best, and I'm like, who can I, like, what on there am I in striking distance of? And that for me a couple of weeks ago was just snatching, because I PR'd my snatch at CFA for the first time in like 5 years because I just wasn't doing much of it. But then, thank you. It was, but then I got up there and I was like, this is sick. And then I was tied with somebody else at 185, and I was like, nope. And then I went and did 187. I was like, I can't be tied up there, And then, but then I got knocked off again by Justin. And I don't know. I think and to your point, like you can get anxiety over that stuff in the wrong way, if it becomes a major concern for people. But I really like having a number to chase. And that's why I got into lifting from the beginning, was because I was always like, okay, last week I clean 135. This week I'm doing 155. And it's just that constant steady increase is what keeps you coming back.
Yeah. It's super important. That's why we keep the whiteboard. It's like the app becomes like the social media of, your little CrossFit gym where everyone's posting and then people are at home laying in bed, like poring over the scores. You could sort of leave it. It's like in the back of your mind, like, oh man, I gotta, I want that whiteboard spot. Justin took that whiteboard spot from me. Mm-hmm. But if you're just like staring at your phone at night, like waiting to see if somebody at the class after you got it, it's like, that's just,
it's not a good relationship.
Leave that shit at the gym.
Yeah. I think it's a good reference point too.
Oh, I love the whiteboard. Don't get me wrong. I go in and I want that asterisk next to my name.
Yeah.
I want to do at RX. I want to beat people. Again, like I was saying before, now I pick and choose those days. I'm just like, I still put my score up, but I really try and, excuse me, be focused on and I think this is important for everybody, and I try and get this out to the membership a lot, is like, what are you trying to take away from the session?
Yeah.
I'm at a point now where like the skills of CrossFit I have acquired. So I'm just like every workout. There's limiters in it for me, but everything is just about general fitness. I think that's the way that people want it, that if we could parlay this into the competition side of it, should be looking at if they want to get good at CrossFit, is like acquiring the skills. So when you go in and there's a Metcon and it's chest to bar pull-ups and wall balls, let's say, and you're really good at wall balls, but you're not that good at chest to bar, in my opinion, the best thing for your long-term development in the sport, so you want to like beat people in the class, is to pace the wall balls so that you're in full control of the chest to bar the entire time. The way to get your best score might be like, let's say it's like a 7-round workout, might be to do single chest to bars the whole time, or like, aggressively attack the chest to bar pull-ups for the first 4 rounds and then like single the last 3 rounds and just like, gain all the ground you can in the wall balls. That might be the best way to get the best score, but you're just leaving a lot on the table, in my opinion, in the development of the skill of your chest to bar.
I had a run-in with that last week, actually, because so double unders, we've talked about, like that's something that I had no idea how to do, and I never thought they'd be that hard. And they're like, you harp on skills all the time. And for the longest time prior to ever doing CrossFit full time, I would just pick and choose workouts based on what I could do.
Yes,
but also
double unders off the table.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm not touching those, And then also just what I had the equipment to do. And I've been hammering double unders in the past couple of weeks leading up to the Open, because I know they're going to come up. And now I can do them. And it was that workout with the 30 double unders, chest to bar, and wall balls. It was, so it was, essentially what we're just talking about. But so I can do them now, but under fatigue is a different story. And so I got torched by, like, Lucy smoked me by like 2 rounds. And like, I'm coming off the wall balls. My heart rate's absolutely cranked. And then I'm catching this rope against my shin and I'm getting pissed. but it's a part of it. You know, like 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have been able to even do it to what I did, you know? And so the skill aspect is something that, you know, I try to think about that a lot anymore, because it's like, you got to figure that shit out first before.
Yeah. I think the end goal should be that everything becomes burpees.
Yeah.
You know, like there is a skill to burpees. You know, you're doing bar facing burpees. Like, what's your footwork look like? You know, you're pacing, you know, getting your chest off the ground quickly, whatever. There's like a lot of little finer points, but essentially everyone can do them, and everyone can do them pretty quickly with some proficiency. You want to get to the point where everything is burpees. So the workout's chest to bar and double unders, and you're just like, okay, well, I can just do this and I can do it well, and I'm proficient at the skill. It's really just about my fitness. Eventually, maybe I run out of, you know, like breathing, or maybe I run out of like bounding capacity because it's wall balls plus double unders, and I just like, my legs are fried. I can't get off the ground, but that's a fitness limiter. It's not a skill limitation. So quick aside, because I think double unders is like the best skill for everybody to pick up first. I think that the best way to get double unders is just do a 10-minute EMOM every day of like 5 to 10 double unders. And that's something usually people can do every day and recover from.
Yeah. I've been going up on my, like the garage of my, or the roof of my garage at my apartment complex. And I just go up there and I just do as many as I can, just for however long I decide to do them.
Yeah. The other thing that I always like to tell people is try and focus on making your forearms tired. Like little bounding, bound through your feet ankles and knees. So you're not like jumping and pumping your knees. And when you're spinning the rope, get it out of your shoulders. Like squeeze your shoulder blades back a little bit. And you want to try and focus on making your forearms tired. Like just spin at the wrist. Yeah. Just like when you do single unders. Your double under, like when you watch pros do double unders, their double under doesn't look much different than a single under.
Yeah, they're just flicking their wrist faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my shoulders were burnt.
Yeah, you get real tight.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're smacking yourself. And
we were all there once.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a natural progression. But competing, I mean, I sent him your like CrossFit Games profile link before we did this. Yeah. And I was just looking over it, because I mean, it goes back. I mean, like, it's been what, 2013 was the first open you did?
Well, some of that, like, because we had a couple years before. I have a couple that aren't on there because I had, like, before we had like Gabe at CrossFit Athletics, the email address. Like, you know, when we first opened the gym, it was just like my personal email address. So that I have a couple on there. But yeah, essentially like back in like 2011 is my first one.
Yeah. And so what was the, I mean, how many of those years did you compete as an individual, and then when did you go to team?
Okay, so we were sort of always on the cusp of getting a team for a long time. So I was focused as an individual, and in like 2015 was my best finish. I was like right above 100th in the region. At that point in time, you need to be 50th in the region. I was like 7 reps off making it as an individual, like per workout. I needed like 7 more reps in each workout. Some of those were like really hard reps. Like I was like, you know, I needed 7 muscle ups. That's like a big ask. Some of that was like, I needed 7 more double unders, where I'm like, oh, fuck, I could have got there. So I was always trying to make it as an individual. And then, you know, we were all sort of like, your scores could count towards the team at that point in time. So I was like, if I don't make it, and there were a couple years in there where we were like 2 spots off making it as a team. And then 2017, we finished 2 spots out, and I shattered my foot like, I'm going to say like 10 weeks before the open. I shattered my navicular bone. It's like this bone in your foot, doing an online comp, diving across a finish line, the handstand walk. It's like the dumbest way to break your foot, walking on your hands. But I had to have surgery. I have a couple of pins and a plate put in my foot. So like that basically, I never stepped foot on the regional floor because of that. Like that year we should have made it. We still almost made it. I almost like that first open workout was my first CrossFit workout back again, recovering. And then by like the 3rd week, there was a snatch workout where I almost got to the 225 snatch. And if I would have hit that, then we would have got in. How I would have done at regionals, you know, is to be seen. And then the next year we made regionals. But at that point in time, I probably should have been on the floor from like an experience standpoint, and a captain, and regional workouts were just like my limitation as an individual. We were talking about earlier, like I was a very powerful athlete. So like the regional workouts traditionally were like rope climbs, muscle ups, heavy deadlifts, heavy power cleans, like there was like 100-pound, like it was a big deal one year. There was 100-pound dumbbells, 100-pound dumbbell snatches. And I was like, dude, this is like my jam. And the way the open is set up is not that, you're not selecting for those people. So like a 20-minute AMRAP is not of toes to bar, rowing and wall balls. That's not my jam. So testing the regional workouts, I would do them, and on some of them I'd do fantastic compared to the high level athletes, but open workouts were always like a big limiter for me. So anyway, 2018 we make it. Maybe I should have been on the floor, maybe I wasn't, but like the people that helped us get there, I was the coach, so I put them on the floor. They deserved that experience. Then they went away from regionals in 2019. They went to like these qualifiers, like the MAC. We qualified for the MAC in 2019. So I was sort of like always doing the team thing, but back in like 2015, 2016, they started going away from, like, my plan with my coach was always to like sneak into regionals. Like we were very aware that like I was going to have to get open workouts to break my way a little bit and then perform really well there. And then if I could get into regionals, like I would do much better at regionals than I would as an individual or as in the open. And then, so like 2016, they went to like 30 people, and then they went to like 20 people. So once they started cutting the field, I was like, I'm not going to make top 30 in the region, top 20 in the region in the open.
Yeah.
Unless the workouts like really change.
It's changed a lot, like in the past, 10 years of just how the games work, right?
Oh, this would be like now would be wonderful for me. Like, especially you need to be 20. So like right now, for people that don't know, like last year, the way that it worked is you had to be in the top 10% to make regional or to make quarterfinals, which now has like replaced regionals. Back in my day, this is an old dude, you had to be in like the top 1%, less than that, to qualify for regionals. So this would have been great for me, like, be in the top 10%, that's no problem. I was like, I think my best finish was like 98th percentile or something like that. But I was like in that 95 to 98th percentile all the time. So yeah, sure, no problem. I could do that. And then the jump from open workouts to regional or quarterfinal workouts are still the same. Like quarterfinal workouts now are like 100 GHD sit-ups, rope climbs, front squats at 255. That is my jam. So that would have been wonderful for me. And then maybe if the workouts break my way, I'm like a fringe semifinal athlete or something like that, or somebody that like does well at quarterfinals. So yeah, it's changed a lot for sure. And I think that now this year, I think it's top 25% make it to quarterfinals, which I'm very curious to see how they set up, because quarterfinal workouts, in my opinion, are not set up for even the top 10% of athletes. Like I qualified last year for quarterfinals and I just didn't do the workouts. I was like, I'm not set up. I'm not training for 6 workouts over the course of a weekend. I haven't done rope climbs. I don't know how long. Like my body's just not. There was like a 300-pound clean and jerk in it, I think, or something, or 275. Could I do that for reps? I don't know. Maybe I could have last year, but I hadn't been training like that. I'd just been training for fun.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they do it. Now they're going to let 25% of people into quarterfinals. I'll have a very honest conversation with people at the gym that qualify and be like, dude, this, like, just do a couple of them for fun. Like the ones that are up your alley, do it. You made it.
Yeah. So this is my first open ever this year. And so, that's
excited
over. Thank you. I'm excited too. Yeah. I'm counting down the days to see when that first one drops. That's over the course of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you've got essentially
released on Thursday.
Yeah.
We do them on Friday night. And then, 3 weeks. It used to be 5 weeks.
Yeah. Right.
And that was a little hard. That's like mentally hard, and it's just hard for people's schedule. I think the 3 weeks is much better.
Yeah. And so then, but with the quarterfinals, then that changes to like it's just that weekend. Isn't it?
You have one weekend. I think it's like 5 workouts, or I think last year was 5 workouts.
Wow. Yeah. See what a difference that is. Because it's like, obviously you can tell that the open is then made for everybody. And then the quarterfinals are very quickly not.
Are totally different.
Yeah.
Okay. So while I have a platform, if this gets out there to anybody that cares, and there's a lot of people that have this opinion, I think that the way that the open should be structured should be a sort of like screening mechanism for quarterfinals, and you could set up the workouts for that. So I think like week 1, yeah, sure, do like a 17-minute RX is 17-minute AMRAP, toes to bar, wall balls, box jumps. It's like everyone can do it. And then your scaled is like V-ups, lighter wall ball, step ups, and then you have like your foundational thing for people that are like just starting out. Maybe it's like sit ups and step ups or something like that, and even lighter wall ball, like air squats or something. And then I think like week 2 or whatever week, you have your RX workout is squat cleans at 225. It's like 5 rounds of 5 squat cleans at 225, 5 ring muscle ups. And then your scaled workout is like chest to bar and a lighter squat clean. That's like kind of like what people would think of as the traditional RX style movement.
Yeah.
And that's just like the way that it is, like people have to scale workouts. Maybe at this point in time, I'd even do the scaled workout. I wouldn't do the RX. And then your foundational is like, more accessible than the RX version for everybody. And then you're screening for what you're going to give people at quarterfinals instead of not screening for quarterfinals. I think that you're like getting 2 different sets of athletes, and you're leaving. My opinion back in the day in regionals was that you were leaving. Take myself out of it, obviously because I have a bias. I'm like, yeah, you were leaving me off the table. Like I could have put up good scores at regionals. You're leaving that subset of athletes out of the population who then could have done really cool things at regionals from a product perspective. So you have like all these fringe athletes that could have gone to regionals and had big clean and jerks, like the things people want to see, or done the really cool workouts, but they were sort of weeded out, which is why I think that they kept cutting regionals down, because the gap from 1 to 50, like Rich Froning or Matt Frazier is finishing first at regionals. The guy in like 50th place, like he's not on the same,
Yeah.
They're getting time capped on the workouts, and Rich Froning's doing it like in half the time cap.
Yeah. It is complex. I mean, when you have a field of that many people, to have to like determine how are we going to make sure the best people get there.
Yeah. And I think the way that they do it now, and they've said this, is basically they treat the whole season from the open to regionals as one screening process to find the fittest. And so if you can't do the open workouts as well as the fittest people in the world, then shrug, which is fine. I'm not complaining about it, but I think that you could end up with a better product and keep people at the quarterfinals level at this point setting them up for a position of success where like, you couldn't do that second workout RX'd. Like now you're really dropping down the leaderboard, because every RX score, if you like complete X amount of reps, is more valuable than the scaled score. Then you're like weeding all the people out who are just going to go into quarterfinals and like stare at the rings, or there's a 315 deadlift for 40 reps and they're like, I'm gonna do this like twice. It's just a recipe for disaster from an emotional standpoint for the athlete, and then also from a physical standpoint, people getting injured.
That performance aspect of it is big. I mean, I feel that like, you want to show out, like when you're taking on these workouts, and it's to look at something and be like, I just can't even do that. Like that sucks. But I mean, it is a part of the preparation for it.
Yeah. And I think that's like what you've seen me write this in the emails to people at the gym, or to the members of the gym. Like that is what's so cool about the open, is you have this thing where like you're there with all your peers, like really trying to put your best foot forward, laying it all on the line, like putting yourself out there to fail or succeed, like air quotes around those, like what is failure, what is success, but to do your best, we'll say, and you're going to fail at doing your best, or you're going to come up short of doing your best, or you're really going to execute. And that opens the door for like a lot of cool experiences for people that they don't have a way to get that experience somewhere. So
nice. Are we at time?
We're at 3 minutes.
We're at 3 minutes. Okay. We can probably just wrap it up then. But I appreciate that. I learned a lot about CrossFit today, actually. And I have no reason not to come into the gym at some point and do it. He's like told me, he's like, you can do it for like a week and like come in with me. I was like, okay. Like I'll do it at some point soon.
Maybe it's a good thing for people that are like CrossFit curious. You were talking about culture. Like we have a foundations program for people that are starting out. I think a lot of people are very intimidated by the idea of CrossFit. When I started CrossFit, it was like there were no foundations programs. And we had this one member who came one time, another shout out, Connor. He played football at Harvard, was an animal, He could do everything. He was like so strong, so fit. And he said he was nervous when he first walked into a CrossFit gym. So if he's nervous, then what's person that's like, hey, I'm here to lose 50 pounds?
Absolutely.
How nervous are they? So the whole program is set up. And when you think about it from a business standpoint, like if we were only serving 1% of or like the top 1% of fitness peeps, like that's just not a very good business model.
No.
So the whole thing is set up. And I'd say that like 99% of the people that come into the gym are unable to do a lot of the stuff when they first start. And most of the people that are really good at the gym now came in and were just completely humbled when they first came in, couldn't do a lot of the stuff. They've just been here for like 5 years. And their fitness has grown. They've learned a lot. So I think that if anybody wants to start out, just know that there's like our foundations program, one-on-one sessions, like it's all set up. We're super cool about whatever your goals are. I always say like, we don't care what your goals are. We just care very much to help you achieve them. So whatever you're here to do, we want to help you do it. I mean, if it's something outrageous then, or something that like doesn't, if you're like, well, I don't want to get fit, but I want to come to CrossFit, I feel like this just isn't the place for you. But it's, so for anybody that's CrossFit curious out there, we'd love to help you out.
Where can people find you? What's the best way to contact you or whoever is the best contact at that?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get started, you just go to CrossFitAthletics.com. If you want to reach out to me, just Gabe at CrossFitAthletics.com is the easiest way. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I love working with people or helping people find fitness from all backgrounds. So if you want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to respond. And or if you want to get started, you just go to the website.
Sounds good. Guess that just about wraps up this one, and appreciate you having the time to come out here and talk to us about CrossFit and what you do and what you're passionate about with your background. So you fit in the category of above average, beyond all comprehension, and I can't wait for you to kick my ass at the gym here at some point.
I meant to say in the beginning, I appreciate you guys having me, thinking that I was above average. I appreciate that. I think this is a cool idea for a podcast, and I was really excited to come out. And thanks. I thought it was a good conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I appreciate it. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.